welcome to this Brain Taxi virtual event featuring Ben Okri. I'm Eric Lorber, the director of Brain Taxi. We are a nonprofit organization that champions aesthetically adventurous literature. And if you don't yet know much about us, I invite you to check out our website anytime after this event to learn more about our quarterly magazine of critical writing, our chapbook publishing, and the many events we host throughout the year, among other advocacy programs. Whether you're an occasional visitor or you'd like to become a member of Brain Taxi, we'd love to have you along for the ride. To do all we do, Brain Taxi earns funding from places such as the National Endowment for the Arts and the Minnesota State Arts Board. But we also depend on individual readers like you for support. So if you're able to pitch in a little something, please feel free to use the donate button at the bottom of your screen. And please know that even a small gift makes a big difference. There are other ways to participate on screen as well. Many of you are already chiming in on the chat, so keep those observations and questions coming. We also have an Ask a Question box, so if you have a question for Ben, please put it there and we'll be getting to as many of those as possible. And of course, there is a button that says Buy the Book. And today you have a choice between 2 books or more, but feel free to purchase either one of Ben Okri's fantastic new books, which we'll be speaking about. And we'll even put a link there for other books by Ben if you're interested in those. So with all that said, it is my great pleasure to welcome Ben Okri. Again, we are celebrating 2 new releases, Every Leaf a Hallelujah, and the paperback issue of Astonishing the Gods. 2 amazing books, very different, and yet also have a lot in common. Ben, welcome. Oh, we don't have your sound anymore. Maybe just and I'm sure we're going to get Ben popped in there with the sound again. I think there are some choppy waves on the Atlantic today, creating a few glitches from across the ocean. Ben, of course, is beaming to us from London. Still no sound.
Can you hear me?
Ah, there you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now you're coming in.
Wonderful. Well, Eric, I just want to say it's a real pleasure to be here, and thank you for such a lovely introduction. I wish I were in Minnesota, but someday when things are a lot clearer, I'll be there. Great city, famous city.
Yes, wonderful. We look forward to your eventual visit. It'll probably be in the summer. Today there's a nice big snowstorm going on. How are things in London?
Well, things are a little better. It was very stormy a couple of days ago, with winds blowing down trees and spires of churches. But the wind seems to have calmed down, and so have we.
Good. Not a bad place to begin a conversation about your work, because you've just made an interesting link between what happens in nature and what happens in the human heart and the human mind. And that is certainly where I think these books and so much of your work intersect. So let's dive in. Every Leaf a Hallelujah. Boy, I feel like, Ben, you're one of these writers who keep surprising readers, keep trying something a little new, a little different. Well, tell us how this particular book got started, because in a way it's a children's book, and in another way it's really a book maybe for the child in all of us.
Yeah, well, you're right about doing something new with every book. It's not a deliberate desire to just be new. It's because I'm asking, the same questions, but from different angles, from different points of view. And with this book, the question I'm asking is, what's happened to us? what's happened to us and our relationship with nature? How have we become so confused and separate from it that the way in which we live, the way in which our civilization, a great civilization, the way in which it's going, is actually every day contributing to the demise of our civilization, of human life. All the things we do are contributing to, environmental troubles. Our cars, our flights, our food. I don't think we mean to do it deliberately, but it's what's happening. So my question is, what happened to us? How did we lose that extraordinary relationship that we have with nature, when nature was always what sustained us and nurtured us? And for me, the starting point with this book was the forests that I grew up with as a kid in Nigeria. The forests in the villages and even in Lagos where I grew up, the forests were abundant. They were abundant, they were rich, they were dense. There were places of storytelling. There were places where the elders and the herbalists went to get leaves for healing. There are places where they're places of the imagination, they're places of ritual, they're places of renewal. And as over the years, I just noticed these forests slowly diminishing and disappearing till the ones in Lagos became invisible, taken over by ghettos, and the ones in the village where we grew up just had been decimated, the trees cut down, and just barrenness and bareness in its place. Rivers full of fish have now became tiny little ribbons, and then they vanished. And you become aware of how this is having a huge impact on us. I think it affects our neurosis, it affects our unease. It makes us people more ill at ease with the world because we've lost this connection with nature. And it was this loss of forests, along with what's been happening over the recent years, the cutting down of the trees in the Amazon, loss of forests and trees everywhere, that led to the writing of this story. Also, my daughter, who's 5 years old, she's a very keen conservationist in her own right. She walks down the canal where we live with a stick, taking out the plastic from the canal. She's very so she was also an inspiration. But it's what's happening to us. It's just this feeling that we're diminishing. We're losing contact with ourselves and through that with nature. So it's a love story to nature and a wake-up call, as it were, to us. We can't lose nature without losing ourselves.
Indeed. The great paradox staring us all in the face, and yet we still feel helpless. But I think books like this actually remind us that we're not helpless. There are things we can do. And I'm so happy to hear that your daughter was an inspiration, because this book certainly reminded me that one of the things we can do is interact with young people and empower them to take action. And so tell us about the heroine of the book. Maybe she's modeled on your daughter, I don't know, but she's certainly inspiring figure.
Well, Eric, I have to sort of very gently disagree with you about empowering the young people to take action. I think empowering is no longer in our power, because we of the older generation, we are part of the problem, because we have not ourselves taken action to do something about it, and the young people have taken it into their own hands. They empower themselves. They're not taking empowering from us. In fact, they look at us and they look at the causes of the problem, and that's why the heroine of this book, she's not 70, she's not 60, she's not 45, she's not even 30. She's 7 years old, and it's because I feel that the generation most sensitive to what's going on around us, what's going on in our environment, what's going on in our streets and in our lives, are the very, very young. They because they don't have the they don't have the stuff that experience gives us, which is this sense sometimes that we know more than we know, They just see the world, they see that something is wrong, and they're now doing something about it. So in a sense, I was inspired by that generation, by the young generation. I was inspired. I was, and I remain inspired by their courage all across the world. And I've felt this environmental, thing, the disaster of the loss of trees and the oil spills that's devastated the Niger Delta in Nigeria. I've felt this since I was a kid. It's been there, in the earliest of my books. In The Famished Road, it plays an important part. But it's only in the last 5-7 years that I've actually become quite active. And I feel, to be honest with you, I feel a little ashamed of this. That I wasn't more active earlier. That I hadn't turned my mind properly to this a lot sooner. And maybe it took my daughter coming along into this world to make me look at it in a new and braver and simpler way. But one thing I absolutely agree with you about is that it is not a hopeless situation. It is not hopeless so long as we wake up to it, so long as we act on the strength of our love for this great planet that we're blessed with, a really rare planet in the universe. I think just love. I think just love for this planet and a sense of wonder is where we begin, which is what the young have. That as you get older, you kind of lose that sense of wonder and that freshness of perspective a bit, sadly. But it's possible to awaken it. This is what this is about: conversation, writing.
Yes, and books like this in so many ways. Thank you, Ben. It's very, very eloquently said. This book, as you've just alluded to, is I'm not even sure it's specifically stated, but it's clearly said in Nigeria. And you've spoken about the diminishment of the forest, the encroaching of the non-forest, but really teasing that out. And one of the things that astonished me was that as the book continues, the sort of litany of the tree environment becomes more and more rich, and you name specific trees over and over. Is that ecosystem, because certainly in the imagination it keeps flowering, but is that ecosystem still that rich, still that savable in Nigeria? And I'm sure for all of us around the world, we're thinking about our own locations where those diminishments have not only been practical things, but have made us less aware of the richness of our local ecosystems.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. The diminishment of nature diminishes our imagination, and the diminishment of our imagination diminishes our lives. And the diminishment of our lives diminishes our possibilities. And then we just become smaller and smaller people till we just dwindle and just fade away, I guess. So in order to restore our magnificence, we need to restore our imagination. And in order to do that, we need to restore the magnificence of nature. I did not tell the story. I did not do my duty when you asked me to tell you about the heroine. I did not do my duty. I have to do it now. She's a girl called Mangoshi. She's 7 years old. Her mother is ill, and she has to go into the forest to find a very rare flower that can save her mother. And at the same time, she has to find this flower to also save the village. And in going into the forest to find this flower, she gets drawn into the language of trees. So she goes for one thing and discovers another. She goes for a flower and discovers that the forest is dying. And the forest has been trying to speak to human beings for a long time, and we have not been listening. And the forest finally found a 7-year-old girl who, because of the illness of her mother, because suffering tends to open our senses, because of the suffering of her mother, was open to the language of nature. And the forest could tell her that it is dying. And she might be able to do something about it. Her quest changes. It still is to get the flower, but then she falls in love with the forest and with a particular tree. And this is the beginning of a new story. It tends to be the case in my books that my heroes and heroines, they go in search of one thing and they discover another. That's because it's the story of life. You set out to do one thing, and life throws all kinds of interesting things your way, and before you know it, you're doing something that you had not even dreamt of doing. And the same thing happens to Mangoshi. She went for a flower and became a forest savior. So it's a story of courage, a story of listening.
Yeah.
You can't have courage without listening. It's about listening. Listen to ourselves, listening to nature, and finally, it's a story about being aware that our voice can make a difference, and our spirit can make a difference. If our spirit comes alive, Eric, you would be amazed what one spirit can do to change things in this world. One spirit that's awoken.
I agree.
Beautiful
setup. Will you read us a short passage maybe from the book?
Yes, I'd love to. I tend to read from the beginning, but this time I'm going to read something from the middle. This is the moment that she has come in contact with the baobab tree, and the tree offers, because she asked the tree, well, what are you? If you're not just a tree, what are you? And the tree says, well, in order for me to tell you what I am, you have to trust me. And the tree asks her to put her arms around it, and the tree takes her on a journey of the spirit into the world of trees. Mangoshi put her arms around the baobab. She shut her eyes and surrendered herself to the great tree. Suddenly, she was soaring through space. She was soaring above the branches, and she saw before her, spreading as far as it was possible to see, a universe of trees. They were all bright and magical. We are not just trees, came the voice of the baobab. We hold the earth together. We are the link between heaven and earth. We give the earth the air that humans breathe. We make the environment stable. We have great healing powers. We are older than the human race. Then Mangoshi felt herself being taken below the earth, where she saw roots and branches of roots linking and connecting one another beneath the wide earth. What is that? These are our roots. Through these, trees talk to one another, share information, and even sense the future. What else do? They keep us alive. Sometimes a tree looks like it is finished, but so long as the roots are alive, it can still grow. Underneath the earth is where the real stuff happens. It's a whole world down here. You can travel from one end of a country to another just through the network of roots. I didn't know a tree was so amazing. Take me, for example, said the baobab. Every part of me is useful. My leaves and bark produce healing medicine. My fruits are nutritious. My roots cure many known and unknown diseases. My shade gives peace and repels evil. A tree is just like a human, you know. We are each very different. Have you not sensed it? How each have our own unique character? Yes, I have, she said.
Beautiful. And a nice drawing in of so many other themes that often come up in your work as well, at least your fiction, which is the work I primarily know. Listening, communicating with the world beyond the immediate world of the senses, that rich dialogue that can ensue if we pay attention. It's marvelous. Was this the first time you wrote with children as part of the audience in mind?
Well, what I keep saying is that it's a book for people between the age of 5 and 105.
Mhm.
Um, and I wish to apologize to people who are 106 who feel excluded. Um, but it's a book for the eternal child in us. It's the first book that I've written for children, for the eternal child. It's the first book I've consciously written. I've been wanting to write. I've been wanting to write books like this for a long time. You know something? When you're much younger, um, um, it's harder to be that wonderfully simpler. It's very odd. When you're much younger, you're more complicated. You're more. It's possibly that you're more affected, um, um, and simplicity comes to you a lot later. And simplicity is a thing you grow into if you're lucky, I think. Um, yeah, and this has been one of the most beautiful of my writing experiences. Actually,
Oh, nice to hear.
I wish I'd done it sooner. I'd be a lot happier if I had.
Well, among the things I was thinking about when I said this, really, it feels practical in a way, or it suggests that there's a lot we can do. And one of those things we can do is wrapped up in the world of storytelling. Uh, and you know, uh, you come from a culture in which storytelling is a very, very important part of how interaction happens. And I think that is probably one reason why Nigerian fiction is so world renowned for its mastery, is because that heart of storytelling is right in it, and it's not apart from life; it's part of life. And so that is something I hear in this book too, but also the imagery. And I want to give a shout out to your artist.
Oh, please, you gotta give a big shout. I'll let you do that, and then I'll join in.
Yes. Well, no, we can keep talking, but I'm going to ask our producer to put some of the images on the screen just so people can get a taste of the artwork. And I think it's quite amazing because I see in it more than the representational, maybe a connectedness to this natural world and certainly the textile tradition as well. So, yeah, I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about how um, uh, these
Da,
images play.
Diana Ejiata. Her name is Diana Ejiata. She's part Nigerian, part Italian. So she combines the two great African and European traditions in her spirit. And we chose her after having studied a lot of her work. She does a lot of illustrations for the New Yorker. Um, when she got offered this, she was absolutely delighted because she loves the famished road. Um, and she was in Africa. I think she was in Ouagadougou at the time. And straight away she went to the forest there. And so the forests of Africa already sort of had begun to do their work on her. And she came back, and we sort of agreed as to how we're going to do it. I was going to give her the story, and then she's just free to just express it in whatever way she wants. We gave her complete freedom, and this freedom gave rise to this wonderful fertility. Um, as the images came in day after day, we were just gasping with delight. And I think she gives a completely rich. You're right about the textile tradition, but there is also a form of African storytelling in painting. There's a great painting tradition, which is a narrative tradition, which is a tradition that comes from the myths of the land. And this one that you have up now is a very good expression of it. There's always a slight elongation, very slight distortion, and a rich celebration of colors. It's almost, I could almost call it a kind of expressionist, African expressionist tradition, but it's also but it comes from stories. And the thing you were saying about stories earlier is that stories are the bridge between us and the world and the natural world. All of the earliest stories connected us to the nature, connected us to the world. There were stories about us and the trees, us and the sky. The gods were nature gods. Our idea of the awesomeness of nature we distilled into myths, and these myths, these stories, remain our link to the world. They remain our first teachers. So again, nature is the way in which nature, the world in which we live, enters into us through our imagination and through the transformative capacity of art that dwells in us. And then with this book, you have both of these traditions, the artistic, which represents the world by transforming it, and the literary, which again represents the oral, the world of things and beings, and transfigures it into narrative.
Absolutely. It's one of the magic things we sometimes call books like this picture books. This isn't exactly a picture book because it's not necessarily limited to the very young, but it's drawing on the power of that in such an interesting way. So I'm so glad to hear a little bit more about the thinking and the process in incorporating this art. It's amazing. Now I was also thinking it was nice to hear that that Diana wanted to collaborate because of her love for the Famished Road. I thought, boy, if you were going to collaborate with everyone, you'd have 1 million collaborators because I'm sure so many of us you were writing through that magnificent book. And again, I want to remind our viewers, you can purchase this book or Ben's other recent book or older books. We'll put a link in the chat to get this. If you have not read The Famished Road, do not fail to get a copy. Speaking of that, famously, I think you're one of the youngest, if not the youngest, winner of the Booker Prize. What did that mean as still a relatively young writer to how did that affect the direction of your work, which again seems to me to have been such a rich and amazing career in so many genres as well as fiction?
Well, I wouldn't say that winning it gave me confidence, because you have to have confidence to write one good short story. You have to have confidence, and confidence is a very mysterious, very, very mysterious thing. It's not that you can do it; it's that you will do your damnedest to do it and to do it beautifully. And it's the doing, and it's the love of the doing, and the not being troubled by the obstacles and the challenges. I think it's all of that that constitutes confidence in the end. So it wasn't confidence that the prize gave me. What it gave me was friendship with a lot of invisible readers out there. When The Famished Road was first published, it had some really wonderful reviews. It had a couple of quite visionary reviews. A lady said she saw angels in the trees in South London after reading it. But it hadn't sold very well, and I don't think it would have sold. It would have maybe grown over the years through word of mouth and acquired an underground reputation. Who knows about these things? Maybe it might have become a surprise bestseller. I don't know. But at the time, it was not looking. It wasn't looking that way. And what the Booker did was it exploded my readership. Suddenly, I went from having 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 to having 20,000, 200,000, 500,000. It just exploded. It gave people the courage, actually, to try out this strange sounding book with the strange sounding title. At the time, many people said to me, "Famished Road, Famished Road, really?" And I was like, they're like, how can a road be famished? How can a road be hungry? That's a ridiculous thing. I was like, well, it depends on how you think about road. If you think just like road with tarmac, you might have a point. But if you think of road as like a way, a way in which we are, a way of being, a way of society, a path. If you think of it like that, then you can see how our road, our way is hungry because, we've not been nourishing it. And they're like, oh, okay, I get it. So it's not a book about famine. I said, no, it's not. It's about the dwindling of vision and the cost of that, and so on and so forth. And so the book just made friends, gave people permission to try out this new dish and fall in love with it. And as for me, it brought a lot of responsibilities, which was an honor to take on. And I just carried on my journey as before. Yeah.
That's also wonderful. I have an idea for a future Ben Okri book, which would be a dictionary, because I love how you take words like competence and responsibility and alter them a little bit so that they mean more than we thought they meant. So, but let's turn to Astonishing the Gods, because this is a there we go, a novel, and yet I think of it as kind of a philosophical fable, and that fable element of it seems to me a through line between this book, which originally came out in the 90s, and your newest work, Every Leaf a Hallelujah. So, yeah, is this something that you wrote in the wake of The Famished Road, or had you been, situate this for us in your own timeline?
Well, I don't think books like this really situate in timelines. I think they're non-linear books.
Right.
They really are.
Yes.
I've been carrying the gem of the idea of this book since I was a kid. I always wanted to write a book about someone who arrives on a strange island. I don't know why that fascinated me. Maybe it's an archetype. Maybe it's a really great archetype in the human imagination. Someone turns up on a strange island. What is this place? Who are these people? Why is everything so amazing? Or why is everything so strange? I think maybe that's one of the great tropes of the human imagination. Maybe it is a secret trope of us, human beings, arriving in life on this planet,
Right.
on this earth. We're born, we turn up, and at the age of one day, we look around and we're like, what on earth is this planet? What is this place? Maybe that's what that is, but I've been carrying that for a long time. I didn't know how to write it. It maybe was the first idea for a novel of a story I ever really had. I didn't know how to write it. Won the Booker, years went past, had some difficulty, got over them. And then I was going through a patch. I felt the need to fast, because I felt I was losing my way a little bit, and I just felt the need to just fast and just return to myself in some way. I've never really done it in this structured way before. And around the third or fourth week of my fasting, this story, the opening sentence, the story, all of it just lowered itself into my mind, and I just began writing it. The opening sentence is not the opening sentence it is today. It was a stronger sentence, which I made a lot gentler, but that sentence was a dense poetic sentence. And the denseness of that sentence actually gave me something to unpack. And this story just came out of that. Every day, the story told me what it wanted to be. I was just as amazed as anybody else would be every day that I turned up to see where the story was going. It's not something you can plan. I had no idea it was going to be about invisible people. It just happened, and I just followed it and trusted it. And but then there's one element missing. There was another event that happened in the midst of all this fasting. Someone did something to me in the streets. I'm not going to say what it is, but it was a disturbing incident. And that incident suddenly in my mind made me aware of why these people were invisible. So there were two things. There was a social element, something the world did to me, and then there was a spiritual element, my fasting. And then there was a biographical element, this gem that I'd been carrying around. But the thing about stories when they turn up is that they draw upon, the bit I read from Every Leaf a Hallelujah, where I talked about roots. Well, that's what the gem of a story does. It drops in you, and its roots grow into the roots of your own life, the roots of your own secret biography. unexpected aspects of yourself. You remember that line where it says, "Down there is where the real stuff happens." Well, that's what this book is about. It's about the down there where the real stuff happens, or the out there, the invisible realm. That's
Yeah,
part of this realm that we live, where the real stuff happens.
it is indeed about
And
that.
that's how it got written. Then I had to leave it and wait, and then it took a lot of time in the shaping of it, because you don't shape it right, it doesn't turn up right. And if it doesn't turn up right, you haven't written it, because it will die.
And this book has such an interesting shape. It's written in very relatively short chapters, sometimes very impressionistic and almost like short dreams or daydreams uh, that are. Um, I think it slows the reader down, or it asks the reader to slow down and to enter this imaginative world, not with the sort of page-turning linear pace that we often approach narrative with, but with maybe a more poetic touch. I love that about this book. Do you want to read a short passage from this one as well?
Yes, please. Well, I've got two in mind. Shall I start from the beginning this time, or shall I read something deeper inside? Why
Um,
didn't I start from the beginning?
Good.
Why didn't I start from the beginning, so people get a sense of how the journey started?
Sounds good to me.
1. It is better to be invisible. His life was better when he was invisible, but he didn't know it at the time. He was born invisible. His mother was invisible too, and that was why she could see him. His people lived contented lives, working on the farms under the familiar sunlight. Their lives stretched back into the invisible centuries, and all that had come down from those differently colored ages were legends and rich traditions, unwritten and therefore remembered. They were remembered because they were lived. He grew up without contradiction in the sunlight of the unwritten ages, and as a boy, he dreamt of becoming a shepherd. He was sent to school where he learnt strange notions, odd alphabets, and where he discovered that time can be written down in words. It was in books that he first learnt of his invisibility. He searched for himself and his people in all the history books he read, and discovered, to his youthful astonishment, that he didn't exist. This troubled him so much that he resolved, as soon as he was old enough, to leave his land and find the people who did exist, to see what they looked like. He kept his discovery of his recent invisibility to himself and soon forgot his dream of becoming a shepherd. But in the end, he didn't have to wait till he was old enough. One night, when the darkness was such that it confirmed his invisibility in the universe, he fled from home, ran to the nearest port, and stole off across the Emerald Sea. He traveled for 7 years, did all the jobs that came his way. He learned many languages. He learned many kinds of silences. He kept his mouth shut as much as possible and listened to all the things that men and nature had to say. He traveled many seas and saw many cities and witnessed many kinds of evil that can sprout from the hearts of men and women. He traveled the seas saying little, and when anyone asked him why he traveled and what his destination was, he always gave 2 answers. One answer was for the ear of his questioner. The second answer was for his own heart. The first answer went like this: I don't know why I'm traveling. I don't know where I'm going. And the second answer went like this: I am traveling to know why I am invisible. My quest is for the secret of visibility. Those who worked with him all those years saw him as a simple man. Actually, they didn't see him at all.
Wonderful. And it's making me think that in the way that I hope people will enjoy this with a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old heroine in their lives. That this book is one maybe for the eternal teenager in us all, the eternal. And boy, I would have loved this book then, because it asks us to ask these big questions that are crucial to ask at that time about how we're going to live and who we're going to be in that world. And so it makes me realize that one of those powers of fiction really is to help us live. And I think that you've done that here. But anyway, I'm sorry, I feel so moved by that. What an opening, and a world that the reader has to become used to living in paradox in this world. And I wonder if you speak about sort of the challenge of that, both from the writer's perspective maybe, but also the thought behind it.
Well, Eric, if you don't mind my saying so, we are living in a world of paradox right now. It's just that we have somehow resolved not to see the paradox. I mean, take the story of the tree. This thing sticks out of the ground. You don't see what holds it underneath. You really don't. If you were to walk down the city and the forest, you'd be safe to conclude that trees just pop up like that and nothing holds them. As far as your eyes, if we're going to go by seeing is believing, we don't actually see the roots. We don't see anything below. So it might as well not be there. That's a paradox, that we're actually living without actually seeing a complete picture of anything, and that's because we rely completely on our eyes. And I think that was one of my philosophical starting points. That maybe our obsession with visibility is one part of the great problem that we've been bringing upon ourselves. Because in a way, the mystery of nature is also the mystery of invisibility. We don't know how seeds grow. I remember when I was a kid at school, and we had agriculture classes, and everyone had their little patch of farm, and you stick a seed in the ground, and you go away, and you come back 3 days later, and this thing has sprouted. And I'm like, how did that happen? And if you had to stay there and watch it every minute for a whole day, I'm not sure you'll actually see the process. Nature itself relies on invisibility. Nature itself, it does its work. It 6 months, a tree is doing stuff inside of its trunk, and when spring comes, it sticks out these magical little buds. Hello, where did that come from? Nature and invisibility. Most of the magical thing. A woman is pregnant. So, we don't see what's going on inside, and then one day a child turns up. Nature is like that, but we're obsessed with visibility. We want to reduce everything to the visible. We keep saying that the only real things in this world are the visible things. And I think this part of what's created a big divide between us and the world, because the world itself is mediated by invisibility. The story we're talking now, the words that's coming out of my mouth to your ears across the ocean, it's invisible. You can't see it. We are the great dialogue between the visible and the invisible. And when we lose a sense of the invisible, we begin to lose a sense of an important part of ourselves. So the story, reversing this obsession that we have with visibility, is in a sense at the heart of the story. And it's also the reason why the title is in reverse. Because I'm going against the predominant ethos, which I think is taking us down a cul-de-sac. We need to go back to the great highway of being.
I'm so glad you pointed that out, because it's the thing that's amazing about books, and it's maybe more obvious in a book in which the artistry and the design is more at the front Uh, uh, in any good book, I think that sense it's telling us things beyond just the words. And so this backwards title certainly is a beautiful, evocative introduction to this world.
Yeah, that's the design of the artist who designed the cover. That's the island there, and it seems to be in flames, but and it diminishes and it flares out of the darkness all around it. And his name is Andreas Gurevich, and throughout the book you see these chapter headings where you have the same island growing smaller and smaller and smaller till it becomes a fractal point. I love the meeting of narrative and art, of story and art. I love art. I'm an artist as well, a secret artist at any rate, and so I've been very fortunate to have this dialogue.
Oh, that's wonderful, and also to celebrate the restoration to print. This book. I think I don't think it had a big presence in the United States back in the '90s, but I'm glad it's here now, and it was recently.
Carry on, Eric. Sorry.
No, I was just going to tell our audience that you already know this, but it was recently named by the Guardian as one of the 100 most essential books, and I think that's very beautiful because people are hungry for fiction to help them lead their lives, and this is a book that can do that. So please go ahead.
No, I was just going to. I was just going to say that again, like as I was saying earlier, like Mangoshi, the hero of this book, set out on one journey. He didn't go in search of a flower. He went in search of something really, really big and daunting, actually, if you really think about it. To go find these people who are supposed to be visible. He went for the secret of visibility. And now, right now, in our times, we're obsessed with visibility. Whether it's online, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, we think that we're only validated by visibility. We think we're only validated by presence. We put all of our validation on the external, on being seen. We think not like Descartes. I think, therefore I am. Now we think I am seen, therefore I am. And this book examines that in an indirect way. Is it true that one's existence really does depend on one's visibility, or is one's existence already in itself the original, the primal miracle that needs no other? And all we need to do is just to use that miracle, explore it, and work with it in the business of life.
Yeah. Were there specific influences? I keep thinking of this as a kind of philosophical fable, and I think that's a rich tradition in literature, although a small niche in a way. But were there either books or plays or even philosophy itself that were influential to you as a writer?
Yeah, there were many, but there are more stories. There are more stories that broke my heart, to be honest. There's a story at the heart of this book. I really have to say it before people get carried away and think that it's just a fairy tale about visibility and invisibility. That at the heart of this book is a tremendous suffering. It's a story of a people that something terrible happened to. And it's because of this terrible thing that happened to them, because of this great suffering, that they set out to create a great civilization. Now, for me, I've always linked suffering and civilization. I think we create beauty, we create great cities, we create great works of art to not to cover up, but in some way to mitigate the essential mystery and essential suffering of existence. What Schopenhauer calls the suffering of existence, the wound of being here, so when you ask, were there many influences? Yeah, many old stories that I used to be told as a kid, stories of people who disappeared, stories of people who they vanished, and in that space in which they vanished, they made a special land, they made a special life for themselves. You know, folk tales of people speculating about what happens to people who've, you know, we're fascinated by people who vanish, people who disappear, and we don't know why they disappeared. We don't know what happened to them. We have no proof of what happened to them, so we make stories to compensate for the agony of this loss. So it's those whispers, because I think loss is is a crucial part of definitely my upbringing. There's a loss there, a loss of all kinds of things that went back a long way. There are books like Homer's The Odyssey definitely one of my favorite books. The Arabian Nights, you know, there's always a story in the Arabian Nights of someone who fetches up on an island and something strange happens to them. Some of the oldest tales are tales of people fleeing their homelands and fetching up somewhere and then somehow making it back. But then also, I mean, all the great influences are, you know, people like Chinua Achebe and Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Bessie Head, really great African storytellers and poets. Shakespeare's magic plays like Midsummer Night's Dream, The Tempest. All those island stories, all the stories of islands and people who, for some reason, have to rediscover themselves in strange places. But then it's also maybe it's also the secret tale of a migrant, or the tale of someone who left Nigeria and came to England. Maybe it's a secret tale also of what it means to, you know, to leave home, which is something we all experience. So who knows? The roots of stories are mysterious.
Yeah, mysterious and deep. Ben, I want to take a couple of questions from the audience before we have to go.
Please, a pleasure. Not to go, but to take the questions.
Yes. And someone is curious about a story like Astonishing the Gods. Do you think it's a sort of inherent part of your being, or does it unfold because of a development in your life? Do you see what I mean? Is it a story that's in there waiting to come out, or is it directed by the outside more than the inside?
There's a half chemical fable that T.S. Eliot began to tell in one of his essays to explain the creative process. I'm not going to go into it because it will take a while, but the essence of it seems to me to be very, very interesting. And I think using my own metaphors now, we'll leave T.S. Eliot somewhere else for a minute. For me, it's an alchemical thing. There's something inside you, your whole life, what you've lived, what you don't even know that you've lived, what you've read, what you've suffered, what you've thought, what you've inherited. There's all of that in you. And maybe one thread of the story is in that. But that comes into an encounter with the world at a certain point, on a certain day, when the temperature is just right. And what is in you and what hits you and the mood of the world at that particular time all come together into a tone. And in that tone is the story. But the story does not exist. The story does not exist. I can't stress it strongly enough. The story does not exist till you start to write it. The story does not exist till each day the invisible thought takes on a visible form of letters on a page. It's a very strange thing. If you don't write it, the story does not exist. It's not there. So the story partly depends on the doing, whether it's painting the picture, whether it's dancing, whether it only exists when we take the courage to step over the line of fear and do. When we do, it exists.
Yes, so beautiful. Ben, I want to thank you for how you've stayed true to listening for that tone and for the work you do in communicating it with books like these. I want to remind our readers that they can purchase these books, but also to quote the passage that you read when the baobab tree tells Mangoshi that one of the things the tree can do is repel evil. And I think that's a message we all should take to heart. It is something we can do as we get through life and save this beautiful planet. So, Ben, for your inspiration in your work and in your dialogue today, endless thanks. It has been an honor to speak with you.
You've been wonderful, Eric. A real pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll have a dinner when I turn up in Minnesota one of these days.
Oh yes, absolutely. We will. We love having writers out, and as soon as that resumes again, we'll get you here. Thank you so much. A big thanks to our audience too, and to remind folks that we have other great author events coming up. So we'll put a link in the chat if you want to check them out. Thanks again to everybody for watching, and to you, Ben, as well in London. Good night.
Good night. Bless, and thank you.